fellow Tamers and Digidestined, it's Mike aka Sanaku from Overground, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over episode 2 of the BT6 Rainbow series, where we're going to be covering the color yellow. So again, if you're unfamiliar, the Rainbow series is something we do every time a new core set is released. We talk about our favorite Digimon, our favorite strategies, our favorite archetypes. And today we're going to be going over one of our favorite Digimon, which is actually Mastemon. And we've built a deck from BT6 that really kind of encompasses everything that she stands for. And it's actually really fun. Now this deck is extremely difficult to play. And one single misplay can kind of punish you severely, and there might not be any coming back from it. And this is one of those decks that, even though this is the first draft, I think I've changed it about 7 times before I even filmed this video. And I'm still testing it extensively a little bit more, and there's still other things that I want to try. But in the meantime, this is kind of what I'm stuck on right now, and I'm having a lot of fun with this deck. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So again, this is a deck based around Mastemon. So we're all about trashing our own security as well as trashing our opponent's security to kind of get additional effects and kind of build up our board state and advance our win conditions. And our win conditions are basically to beat our opponent by a war of attrition. We're going to slowly deal with their resources by eliminating every single facet that they have. We're going to take out their tamers. We're going to take out their Digimon. We're going to take out their security. It's just a slow kind of burn that snowballs into a victory. So let's talk about the card by card and kind of discuss how that all kind of comes together. So starting with our rookies, we're playing 4 copies of the original Pulsemon, 3 copies of Starmon, which you can barely see there. There he is. 3 copies of the new Pulsemon from BT6. So this card's actually very cool. And what this card reads is that on play, we can trash the cards from the top of our security until there's only 3 left, and we gain one memory per. But the main reason we're playing this Pulsemon is due to its inheritable, whereas if we have exactly 3 security cards, this Digimon gains jamming. And we're playing a lot of ways to manipulate our security through taking and recovering, that we can always get us into that 3 threshold, and that kind of triggers all of our effects, similar to kind of the old War Greymon strategy of BT4. And then we're going to complement that with 2 copies of Bushiagumon. Again, just here to kind of, finish the game if we need to. It's something that we can keep in our trash and kind of have it sit there and waiting, and then when Mastemon's ready to bring it out, we can go for game. And then 2 copies of the promo Patamon. This deck's not playing Lucemon because due to the nature of it, it's already kind of prone to potentially bricking, and I want to not give myself another opportunity to draw dead cards. So while I could swap out one of these Patamons for one Lucemons, if I draw that Lucemon early game, there's not really much I can do with it. I'd rather have something I can evolve into to potentially draw more cards and draw myself out of bad situations than give myself more dead draws down the road. And while Lucemon is very powerful, I don't necessarily think that it's needed for this deck. If you can find space to throw it in yourself, you're more than welcome, but in the context of how I wanted to build this deck, I don't necessarily believe that it's mandatory. But this Patamon here, if you have one of your security cards, just trigger recovery +1. You will go down to a very low security count very often with this deck, and it can get a little dicey. So you're playing as many kind of recovery last-ditch cards as possible to kind of just get yourself back into a position where you can get ahead in the game. So moving on to our champions, we're playing 4 copies of Pitomon. Again, just a 1-cost evolver that also happens to be a blocker. I talked briefly in the blue Hexablamon video about why blockers are kind of not great this format, but you still have to play them in certain circumstances just to make sure that you have some survivability potential. 2 copies of Wizardmon. This is going to be the new Wizardmon from BT6, where once returned, if a card is removed from your security stack, you gain 1 memory. This is really cool, because something like Mastemon, if you have this underneath that stack, you don't have to play stuff like the Purple Kari or, bring back a Pulsemon to gain that extra memory to kind of make Mastemon evolve for 3 instead of 4. This makes it so that Mastemon will always evolve for 3 no matter what. You can actually bring back something else to advance your board state even further. This also combos really well with something like TK, because even though you're recovering 1 after the fact, you're still taking something out of your security stack and you're going to gain 1 memory. So now you're actually playing your TK for 3 instead of 4. This combo is even better with something like Blinding Ray, because now you can Blinding Ray to get 3 memory instead of just 2, which is insane. And it also combos with Dynasmon, which we'll get to very soon. To complement that, we're playing 2 copies of the promo Gatomon. This is where if you have a purple in play, it gains blocker. While that effect is very powerful, we're primarily using it for the fact that if we have 3 or fewer security cards in play, on play we get to recover 1. And because we're playing a Mastemon deck, we are going to be bringing back level 4s or lower from the trash, and this gives us another good candidate to revive in order to kind of advance our game state. And on that same token, in terms of good candidates, we're playing 1 copy of Mimicmon. And what Mimicmon reads is that if we have 3 or fewer security on play, we have to gain 2 memory. Moving on to the ultimates, we're playing 3 copies of the BT3 Angemon. We're complementing that with 2 copies of the starter deck Angemon. This is where on Digivolve we get to recover 1 if we have 3 or less. Then we're going to play a bit of an eclectic mix here. We're playing 2 copies of the Rise Greymon from BT4, as well as 2 copies of War Growlmon from BT4. And these are here primarily to help us set up targets in trash for Mastemon to revive through the Digiburst mechanic. Rise Greymon can also help us accelerate a Tamer into play for his Digiburst ability, because we can put a yellow or red Tamer with 4 or less. We're playing 4 Tamers. That helps us kind of get them into play a little bit faster. And War Greymon helps us soften up your opponent's Digimon by reducing it by 4,000. And if we hit something like a War Greymon, that can help us combo even further by actually eliminating the threats we'll combo again with War Greymon. War Greymon also gives one of our Digimon plus 1,000, which can be relevant depending on the matchup. But we are kind of shooting to get that Pulsemon in the source, so that way we can get that special jamming ability as well. Now on to our Megas, and this is one of the parts of the deck that I keep swapping around with or changing with. I want to play 4 Mastemon, but I'm not quite sure what to cut. But right now for our Megas, we're playing 4 Mastemon. Again, Mastemon, on Digivolution, each player trashes the top card of their security, and then you can revive a level 4 or lower purple or yellow Digimon. And then Dynasmon is a brand new addition to the deck as well. Oh my god, can't even pick this up. And he comes straight new from BT6. And his effect is that on Digivolve, we trash the top card of our security, and we look at the top 6 cards of our deck, and we add 2 level 6 or lower Digimon among them and put them into our hand. So this is a huge consistency boost for yellow, because it helps us search our combo pieces that we specifically need in that moment. And furthermore, it trashes the rest, so it also sets up targets for Mastemon as well, which is really, really, really cool. But the best part about Dynasmon, I think, is his all turns ability. And that is, if this card is removed from our security stack and we have 3 or less security cards, we can recover 1. So that means when you evolve into Dynasmon, if you have 4 security and you trash the top to resolve his effect, you get plus 2 Digimon. And then, because now you're at 3 or less, you can actually recover 1 immediately, putting you right back to 4. This means that when you have go into Mastemon, for example, with Dynasmon, and you still are under that 3 or fewer threshold, that means you automatically get to recover 1. So you actually didn't lose any advantage through Mastemon's effect. This also means that stuff like Blinding Ray will now give us additional memory while also not losing us the security, which makes Blinding Ray literally free in every sense of the word. And it also means that all turns, that when your opponent declares an attack against you, if they take one of your security cards away and you're still at that 3 or fewer threshold, you'll automatically recover 1, means that that attack literally meant nothing. It's essentially a holy wave in a body that recurs itself every single turn. And the reason Dynasmon is very powerful is because we can search level 6 or lower. So that helps us play other tech options in the deck that we otherwise don't necessarily want to see multiples of, but we want to see them at 1 copy that we can dig through our deck with Dynasmon to find. And that's 1 copy of the BT4 War Greymon, because this helps us be a lot more aggressive in certain situations while also giving us more removal options. And because War Greymon also ties together with that security removal strategy, it means to also trigger our Wizardmons. It also trigger our Dynasmons. And if we can get this War Greymon with Pulsemon underneath with that jamming, and we can stick at that 3 security threshold, that essentially gives us 2 swings with War Greymon at jamming, with also the potential to remove a body every single time. And to complement that, in terms of searchable level 6s, we're also playing 1 copy of Sakuyamon. Sakuyamon is very powerful to deal with Jesmon as well as Bond decks, because whenever something comes up from the raising area, they get security attack -3, and this just kind of keeps decks like that in check, because it makes sure that when they do finally bring it up to evolve into their final kind of form and start swinging for the fences, that turn is essentially wasted, and it forces them to keep their opponent, keep our opponent's Digimon in raising, and force them to kind of play a little bit wider of a board, in which case we can start eating their front end alive with the rest of our stuff. Writing out the Digimon, we're playing 2 copies of Sword Defeat. Sword Defeat is here because we're playing Mastemon, so we can evolve over top of it, which is a main argument why I'm trying to make room for 4 Mastemon, because that gives the credence for playing 2 of these a bit more. Also, it gives us a good security check. Yellow is not known for having great security checks, unfortunately. We do get a new good check in the form of Wyvern's Breath this format, but it just gives us a good body that we can just throw onto the board, and it gives us an additional form of removal. That kind of ties into that whole war of attrition strategy. And furthermore, if we do evolve on top of a Mastemon, we can take out a Tamer. So the whole point of this deck is just to slowly get rid of your opponent's resources to stop them from being able to play the game at every opportunity possible, while also limiting what options they can throw back at you. And then moving on to the Tamers, we're playing 2 copies of TK and 2 copies of TK and Kari. TK and Kari are essentially a permanent Blinding Ray every turn. Since you're going to be taking your own security away from you, you're always should generally have less than your opponent, which means you're always going to start the turn with 2 or more. This means that combo with regular TK, you're going to start the turn at 5. This means that all of your evos here are going to be free without having to pass the turn, and you can actually reap more memory back off of their effects depending on how you build your stacks. The other cool thing with TK and Kari is that on attack declaration, you can tap them to give something -1000. And this combos really well with something like both War Greymon and the War Greymon, because it helps you just have more opportunities to remove more bodies off of the board. Then for our options, we're playing 2 copies of Wyvern's Breath. Wyvern's Breath is primarily here again to give us a good security check. It's not great to draw because it's very expensive to play, but it does give one of our opponent's Digimon -15,000 for the turn. And then we're playing 2 copies of Blinding Ray. This is again just a combo with all our other security removal effects, while also giving us extra memory to play out the remainder of our turns. So yeah, that is the deck. This is going to be it for the yellow color of the Rainbow series. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you like what we do here at Overground, please consider giving us a subscribe, because we are trying to slowly build up our subscription. We lost a couple of you guys after we took that little hiatus, and we're hoping to kind of get back into the game and see a lot of you more often. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, like always, please leave a comment in that section below. I'm always happy to read everything and respond to you guys. So have a great day, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one.